The old Honda Civic made a familiar crunch on the gravel driveway of my family's estate. Through the windshield, I could see my cousin's luxury cars lined up like shiny trophies. Mercedes, BMW, Audi, each one a statement of what they thought success looked like. I parked at the far end, away from their precious vehicles, not because I was ashamed of my 15-year-old car, but because I knew what was coming. The jokes, the snide remarks, the not-so-subtle digs about how the brilliant Alexandra Morgan had fallen so far from grace. If they only knew. I checked my phone one last time before heading in. My investment app glowed with numbers that would make their heads spin, but I closed it quickly. Tonight wasn't about showing my hand. Not yet. Tonight was about watching them dig their own graves with their assumptions. The front door opened before I could knock. Alex. My mother's voice carried that familiar strain of disappointment. You're late. And, oh, you're still driving that thing. I kissed her cheek. Happy birthday to Dad, Mom. Inside, the mansion echoed with forced laughter and clicking heels. The success parade was in full swing. My cousin Marcus, showing off his new Rolex. Cousin Victoria, bragging about her recent promotion to junior partner. Uncle Philip, loudly discussing his latest real estate venture. Alexandra, my father's booming voice cut through the chatter, finally decided to join us. I turned to face him, surrounded by his usual court of admirers. At 65, Thomas Morgan still commanded attention, his silver hair and tailored suit projecting the image of old money and power. Happy birthday, Dad. I offered him the small wrapped package I'd brought. He weighed it in his hand, frowning slightly. Let me guess, another book? Open it and see. Before he could, my cousin Derek cut in. Probably all she can afford on a teacher's salary. Oh wait, you're not even teaching anymore, are you, Alex? The room rippled with poorly concealed snickers. They all thought I'd failed after leaving my teaching position at the private academy last year. None of them had bothered to ask what I was really doing. No, I said simply. I'm not. Then what are you doing? Victoria chimed in, wine glass dangling from her manicured fingers. Besides driving that embarrassing car? I smiled. Investment management. Derek laughed out loud. Right, because someone's really going to trust their money to a failed teacher who can't even afford a new car. My father unwrapped his gift, a first edition of his favorite classic novel, and set it aside without comment. Alexandra, perhaps it's time to be realistic. Your Uncle Philip could use someone in his office. Basic admin work, but it's a start. Thanks. I cut him off. But I'm doing fine. Fine, Marcus snorted. Is that what you call living in that tiny apartment? Driving a car older than Victoria's designer handbag? I took a sip of water, letting their assumptions wash over me. In my pocket, my phone buzzed. Probably another alert about one of my investments hitting its target. I had 37 companies in my portfolio now. Most of them quietly acquired through the private equity firm I'd built from scratch after leaving teaching. At least she showed up, my mother said. Ever the diplomat. Now, shall we move to the dining room? Dinner was exactly what I expected. Crystal glasses filled with $100 wine. Conversations about vacation homes and country club memberships. Every few minutes, someone would glance at me with pity or contempt, depending on their level of intoxication. Then came the moment that changed everything. A toast. Uncle Philip stood, raising his glass. To success and those who achieve it. He looked directly at me. And to those who, well, we can all be winners, Can we? Something in me snapped, not with anger, but with clarity. I'd stayed quiet for years, watching them measure success in cars and clothes and summer homes. Watching them dismiss me because I chose to live simply, to build quietly, to grow my wealth away from their shallow definitions of power. I pulled out my phone, opened my portfolio app, and cleared my throat. You're right, Uncle Philip. We can't all be winners. I stood up holding up my phone. Would someone like to calculate the combined net worth of everyone at this table, including the vacation homes, the cars, the investment properties? Derek, always quick to show off, pulled out his phone. Easy. Let's see. He started adding numbers. Other family members calling out their assets. Done, he announced proudly. Roughly 47 million, give or take a few $100,000. I nodded, then turned my phone screen toward them. That's impressive. Now, would anyone like to guess what the failed teacher is worth? The room went silent as the number registered, 9 digits, before taxes. That's impossible, Marcus stammered. Is it? I scrolled through my portfolio, watching their faces pale. Shall we go through it? The tech startups I've acquired, the real estate holdings, the private equity deals. My father's hands gripped his chair. Alexandra, what are you saying? I'm saying, I met his eyes steadily, that while you were all laughing at my Honda and my tiny apartment, I was building an empire. One that's worth more than this entire family's assets combined. Victoria's wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the imported marble floor. But how? Uncle Philip's voice had lost its smug edge. I smiled, thinking of all the nights I'd worked while they partied, all the deals I'd closed while they bought new cars, all the wealth I'd built while they were busy showing off their surface-level success. I learned early, I said, putting my phone away, that true wealth doesn't need to be displayed. It needs to be multiplied. The silence that followed was deafening. And I wasn't done yet. Not even close. The silence didn't last long. In my experience, people with fragile egos never stay quiet for long. Prove it, Derek demanded, his face flushed. Anyone can show numbers on a phone screen. I reached for my briefcase. Not designer, just well-made leather that would last decades. Funny you should ask. I brought something for after dinner, but now seems like a good time. I pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. Inside were bank statements, property deeds, company ownership documents, hard proof of everything I'd built while they were busy judging my lifestyle choices. Marcus grabbed the folder first, his hands shaking slightly as he flipped through the pages. This is real, I finished for him. Every page, every number, every acquisition. Victoria leaned over his shoulder, her perfect makeup unable to hide her growing pallor. Morgan Global Ventures. That's you? I nodded, among others. The name clearly meant something to her. It should. My company had recently acquired the private equity firm where she'd been desperately trying to make partner. She just hadn't connected the dots yet. But you were teaching, my mother whispered. All those years. I was teaching, I agreed, and learning, and investing. Did you know you can learn a lot about business potential by teaching the children of CEOs and tech founders? I smiled. They talk about their parents' companies, their innovations, their blind spots. My father hadn't moved, hadn't touched the documents. He just stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. Why keep it secret? He finally asked. Why drive that car? Live in that apartment? Because I leaned back in my chair. Success isn't about showing off. It's about building something sustainable, something real. Uncle Philip scoffed, trying to regain his composure. Real? You've been deceiving your family for years. No, I corrected him. I've been working while you've been posturing. There's a difference. I pulled out another document. This one made several people at the table gasp. For example, I continued, did you know that 3 months ago, when your development company was quietly looking for investors to avoid bankruptcy, Uncle Philip, I was the one who bought your debt? His face went from red to white in seconds. That's not? You couldn't. Through a subsidiary, of course, I added. I didn't want the Morgan name attached until the right moment, which apparently is now. The room erupted. Victoria started crying, probably realizing her career was now in my hands. Marcus was frantically Googling my companies on his phone. Derek just sat there, his expensive watch suddenly looking very cheap. My mother touched my father's arm. Thomas. But he held up his hand, silencing her. His eyes never left my face. How long? He asked. How long have you been planning this? Planning? I shook my head. Dad, I wasn't planning anything except building something meaningful. You're the ones who turned it into a competition, who measured success by what you could show off. I stood up, gathering my things. And now, if you'll excuse me, I have an early meeting tomorrow. Acquiring companies takes time, you know. Wait, Victoria suddenly spoke up. The firm, my firm, are you going to fire you? I finished her thought. No, Victoria. Unlike some people in this room, I don't measure my worth by how many others I can push down. I paused, but I will be watching. Merit matters in my companies, not family names. As I turned to leave, my father's voice stopped me. The book, he said quietly. The first edition. How much did it really cost? I turned back. More than your house, Dad. I bought it because I remembered you reading it to me when I was little, before success became more important than stories. For the first time in years, I saw something crack in his perfect facade. The Honda, he said. Why keep driving it? Because it works, I replied simply. And because every time you all laughed at it, every time you judged me for it, you showed me exactly who you were. It was the best market research I could have asked for. I walked to the door, then stopped one last time. Oh, and Uncle Philip, about your development company. The board meeting is on Monday. I suggest you prepare for some changes. The drive home in my trusty Honda was peaceful. As I pulled into my apartment's parking lot. Yes, I still lived in the modest apartment, despite being able to buy the entire building. My phone buzzed with messages. Family members suddenly wanting to catch up. Cousins asking about job opportunities. My mother begging me to come back and explain everything. I ignored them all, because tomorrow wasn't about family drama. Tomorrow was about the 3 company acquisitions I had planned, the new tech startup I was funding, and the educational foundation I was launching, the one that would help other failures like me build their own empires. Let them stew in their shock. Let them realize that while they were buying status symbols, I was buying actual symbols of success, companies, innovations, opportunities. They thought tonight was the big reveal. They had no idea what was coming next. The morning after my father's birthday dinner, I sat in my office on the top floor of an unmarked building in downtown Manhattan. No company logo on the door. No flashy signage. Just quiet power. the way I liked it. My assistant, Sarah, walked in with my morning coffee. Unlike my family's pretentious tastes, I preferred simple dark roast in a plain ceramic mug. "Your father is in the lobby," she said, not bothering to hide her surprise. "He's been there since we opened." I checked my watch. 7:30 a.m. How long? Security says he arrived at 6. I smiled slightly. Thomas Morgan, waiting for anyone, let alone for an hour and a half. That was new. "Send him up in 10 minutes, I said, turning to my computer to finish what I was doing. When he walked in, he looked different. The perfect suit was still there, but something had changed. The aristocratic posture was gone, replaced by something almost humble. "Alexandra." He stood awkwardly, like he didn't know whether to sit or stay standing. "This is quite an office." I gestured to a chair. "What can I do for you, Dad?" He sat, looking around at the minimalist decor. No awards on the walls, no fancy artwork, just clean lines and clear purpose. "Your mother is. We're all." He struggled with the words. "Yesterday was quite a shock." I imagine it was. He pulled out his phone, handed it to me. On the screen was an article from this morning's Wall Street Journal. Morgan Global Ventures acquires tech giant for $2.1 billion. "Ah," I said. "That wasn't supposed to be announced until market open." "The Morgan in the company name," he said quietly. "That's really you?" "Yes. Why didn't you ever tell us?" "Tell me?" I leaned back in my chair, studying him. Would you have listened? Really listened? Or would you have tried to take control, like you did with everything else? He flinched. "I only wanted the best for me," I finished. "No, Dad. You wanted what looked best to others. There's a difference." Silence fell between us. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city was coming alive, unaware of the drama playing out in this quiet office. "Your uncle, Philip, is worried," he finally said. "He should be." I pulled up a file on my computer, turned the screen so he could see. His development company has been mismanaged for years. The books are a mess. The projects are behind schedule. And the investors. I paused. "Well, let's just say I'm not the only one who's noticed." "You're going to take it from him?" "No," I said firmly. "I'm going to fix it. Whether he stays or goes depends entirely on him. Like I said last night, merit matters." My father was quiet for a long moment. Then the Honda. I actually laughed. "Still stuck on that, aren't you? Tell me, Dad, what's worth more? A car that gets me where I need to go, or the 3 tech startups I'd bought instead of wasting money on a status symbol?" He had no answer for that. My phone buzzed. The market was opening. Time to watch my latest acquisition's stock price respond to the news. "I have work to do," I said, standing. Was there anything else? He stood too, straightening his tie. A nervous habit I remember from childhood. Your mother wants to have dinner. The whole family. To apologize, I suppose. I shook my head. "I'm not interested in apologies, Dad. I'm interested in understanding. Do they understand now that success isn't about what you show, but what you build? Do they understand that their mockery, their judgment, their constant competition for status, that it all means nothing in the real world of business?" "I don't know," he admitted, "but I'm starting to." As if on cue, my phone lit up with a notification. The stock price of my new acquisition was soaring. Another quiet victory. "I'll think about dinner," I said finally. "But first, I have a company to run." Actually, several companies. After he left, Sarah came in with an update. The board of Philip's company is requesting an emergency meeting. Victoria left 3 messages about her position at the firm, and your mother sent flowers. I smiled. The flowers? I had them sent to the children's hospital, as per your standing instructions. Good. I turned back to my work. And Sarah? If any more family members show up. I know, she nodded. They need an appointment, just like everyone else. The next few weeks were interesting. My cousins suddenly discovered humility. Uncle Philip agreed to step down and let professional management take over his company. Victoria actually started doing her job instead of relying on her name. And my father, well, he did something I never expected. He sold his Bentley and bought a Toyota. When I asked him why, he said something that actually made me proud. Because I finally realized that what you drive doesn't matter nearly as much as where you're going. 6 months later, I hosted a family dinner. Not at a fancy restaurant, but at my still modest apartment. They came, all of them, dressed more simply than I'd ever seen them. Over simple homemade pasta. Yes, I cook. My mother finally asked the question I'd been waiting for. How did you do it, Alexandra? Really? I looked around at their faces, no longer smug, no longer judging, just genuinely curious. I watched. I said. I learned. I stayed quiet and built something real while you were all busy building appearances. I took a sip of wine, not $100 bottles, just good wine that I actually enjoyed. And most importantly, I never confused having money with having worth. Victoria, who'd recently earned an actual promotion based on merit, nodded. You taught us all something, Alex, even if we didn't want to learn it. I smiled. That's what teachers do best. Later that night, after everyone had left, I stood at my window, looking out at the city. My phone buzzed with another alert. Another successful acquisition, another quiet victory. But this time, I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. Because true success isn't about proving your worth to others. It's about proving it to yourself. And I'd done that, one silent victory at a time, in a Honda Civic that had carried me further than all their luxury cars combined.